What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Hello and welcome to another indie devlog where I'm going to show you my progress I made on my 3D Endless runner in the last couple of days. In today's episode we will add some post-processing effects to our game to make it much more appealing. We are focusing on the effects that are suited for mobile and are not too performance heavy to keep our game nice and fast. I got a lot of good and constructive feedback from you guys, not only on YouTube but also on Reddit and on Facebook, and to add the post-processing was actually one of your suggestions. Before we jump right in, let's have a quick look at the gameplay before I started implementing the changes. Last time we focused on improving our randomly spawned prefabs, and I also added a ton of new ones to improve the variety and also reduce doubles. I also added a new font to our UI, and I also refined it a little bit with adding shadows and an icon for our coins. We still have quite a road ahead of us before release, but I think the progress made is pretty satisfying and we already have a playable game which will be improved step by step in the next weeks. Not only will we improve our existing components, but we will also add a lot of new features like a menu, hook our character up with some new skills and abilities, and I also will create new different themed levels which can be accessed by a level select screen. If you want to see more devlogs and keep track of the development, please consider subscribing and also drop a like if you like this video. Please also make sure to share your ideas, feedback and questions in the comments. I really appreciate your feedback and your participation. Like I mentioned, I got lots of good advices. One was to add some post-processing effects which are quick and easy to implement and can have a big impact on the visuals. This advice came from a user named Gegentun here on YouTube. Hope I pronounced that name right. If not, please let me know. Sounds like German to me, but I also could be wrong. Anyway, he not only dropped the idea but also helped me to figure out which post-processing effects are good for mobile performance-wise, and he came up with a list of effects which I tried out and played around with. But enough talking, with not much further to say, let me show you how I set this up and let's dive right into the implementation. First, of course, we need to make sure that the Unity post-processing package is installed. You can find it if you go to Window and then Package Manager and then search for post-processing. In my case it's already installed and I can work with it. Next we of course need to set it up, so I quickly added a post-processing layer and a post-processing volume to my camera. I also created a post-processing profile in my presets folder and dragged it onto my volume component. Now we need to adjust a few options. On the post-processing layer component we need to set a layer for our volume blending. With installing the post-processing Unity package, it automatically adds a post-processing layer, which I'm going to choose here. Next I want to add some anti-aliasing. I chose the FXAA in fast mode so that it runs smooth on mobile. Anti-aliasing is very performance heavy, but it also adds a lot to the visuals. Now let's open up our post-processing profile and let's add the suggested effects. With this, the setup is basically complete and we can start playing around with the different effects and see what we will keep in the game. We will now have a look at the different effects, one after another in no particular order, but we will save the most awesome effect for the last one, so watching until the end pays. Now, let's take a look at Bloom first. I guess most of you already know this post-processing effect. What Bloom does is it creates kind of a fringe of light effect from the border of light areas so that it looks like an extremely bright light, which is overwhelming the camera lens or the eyes watching it. If you don't know Bloom, you will see it in a minute. Now let's first have a look at the settings we can modify. I think the intensity is the most important one here. There's also a fast mode checkbox which we will need to make it less performance heavy on mobile. If you like Bloom or not depends on your personal taste. I personally like it more in dark levels to make the lights seem more intense. I think I will go with a little bit of Bloom maybe. You see, it gives our level that kind of shiny effect. What I don't like that much is that the stripes on the road also seem to shine, so I need to change the material that I use. I just make the color of the stripes a little bit less white. Okay, and there we go. I think that looks fine now. I think we will keep this effect. As you see, it looks pretty cool with that shine and also adds to our comic style, I think. Also, as you see at the end of the road, it outshines the end of the level a little bit, so it will also prevent the player from seeing that stuff gets spawned, which is a pretty handy side effect. Next, let's take a look at the chromatic aberration effect. This is kind of a distortion effect which emulates the failure of lenses to focus all colors at the same time. I think the most important options here are the intensity and the fast mode as well. First let's enable the fast mode and then let's play around with the intensity a little bit to see what it does. Yeah, I think that looks kinda cool. I don't think I will use that by default, but I think this will be handy soon for some of the skills I plan for our dog, such as speed boost and so on. I think increasing this when increasing the movement speed of our player will add a lot of dynamic to the game, and it will also look awesome. Maybe I will implement that in one of the next sessions, but for now I think I will leave it out. Alright, now let's have a look at the lens distortion effect next. With this you can basically have the effect of a fisheye lens and the opposite, as you see when I move the intensity slider. I think like with the chromatic aberration effect, we'll use this one when our player moves very fast, maybe with the speed boost or some skill like that. I think when activating a speed skill or something like that, a negative value in intensity would look very awesome and would make the speed feel more intense. But for now I will remove it. Okay, so let's move on to the next effect, which is the vignette. Not sure if I pronounced that right. A vignette is some sort of an image frame. It adds stuff to the edges of your screen, as you see when I change the intensity. I can also change the smoothness and roundness and so modify its look. You can also change the position. I think when you're creative you can achieve pretty interesting results with this, because you can also modify these values with code. Anyway, I don't think a vignette effect is necessary in our game right now. Maybe a slight black gradient at the edges. I would be curious what you think. Would you leave it in the game or remove it? If we would change this effect to red, we could also use it to indicate that the player is hurt. This will possibly get kinda handy in the future, but I think I'll leave it out for now, but maybe I will come back on this one later. Okay, then let's move on to the next and last post-processing effect of our list. Color grading. Like I already mentioned before, this is the most awesome and most powerful one. With this effect you can basically overhaul and modify the output colors of the game, which is pretty much like in Photoshop when you apply filters or image corrections. First, let's change the mode to a low definition range to save some performance. Now let's take a look at what we can do. We have all sorts of options which can lead to different results. With the temperature, for example, you can change the color temperature of an image, like the name might suggest. This would be very handy if you have, for example, very hot or very cold levels. Also, what's pretty interesting is the hue shift, which basically shifts all of our colors. With this one we can achieve a very funky alien planet-like look, or LSD trip look, depending on who you're asking. But I think the most important settings for us are the saturation and the contrast to perfectly adjust our colors to our comic style look. First, I will increase the contrast. That makes the colors much more dynamic and more stand out. But I also will need to slightly decrease the saturation, because I feel like the colors are a little bit too bright right now. I will also decrease the gamma just a slight bit. Of course, I played around with the colors beforehand and I already knew where the journey was going, but I think this is a pretty good result, especially when you compare it to the picture before. I wasn't aware of that, but the version before looked almost faint or colorless. Now the colors look much more dynamic, and that pretty much supports our comic style. Let me know what you think, guys, and maybe you can help me out to improve this even more. Now, like we do in every video, let's now make a quick before and after comparison so that you can easily see the impact made by applying this quick and simple post-processing effect. This was how our game looked before adding the post-processing effects. Just take a second and take in the impressions. Now let's have a look at how our game looks now. Pretty impactful, isn't it? I think that small changes made a huge difference overall. To quickly summarize, for now we just kept the bloom effect and the color grading, which made a huge difference, and later on we will use the chromatic aberration and the lens distortion to support the visuals of some of our skills. Please let me know what you think, what you would change, or how you would adjust the settings to make it look even better. Coming up in the next episode, we will add some particle effects, like when our player runs, jumps, hits an enemy, or collects coins and stuff. This will also be a little bit more of a detailed video, so like this one. Please let me know if you rather like videos where I go a little bit more into detail and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, or if you rather prefer fast-paced videos where I basically show everything quickly and mainly focus on showing actual gameplay. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, I appreciate it. If you guys liked this video, please drop a like and share your feedback and ideas in the comments. Please also make sure to subscribe if you want to see more devlogs and stay updated. This is it for today's video. Take care and stay healthy, guys. See ya.